Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. If you've ever wanted to be a podcast guest, the kind that gets invited back, the kind that turns a 30-minute conversation into real visibility and real opportunity, I built something for you. I want to tell you about the Amplify Your Message, the Podcast Guest Mastery Experience. It is everything I've learned from 800 plus interviews distilled into how to actually show up as a guest that people remember and get invited back. Early bird pricing is live for a limited time. Links are in the show notes. Let's get out there and help amplify your message. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest is Riana Malia. She is a board-certified neurosomatic practitioner and identity architect. She's also the creator of the Clear to Create method, which is a system that helps women clear their unconscious patterns holding them back and rewire their nervous system and reset their internal blueprints. Welcome, Riana. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
It is my honor and my pleasure. Thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today to share a little bit about your story and your journey, and of course, the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you do and all the women you're helping. So with that being said, let's jump right in. What was the catalyst moment that cracked you open and led you down the path that you're on now of becoming a neurosomatic practitioner and identity architect? Let's start right from the beginning.
So here's the thing. I feel like there's some context to the thing that happened, which I think will make it a little bit more interesting rather than just give you. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yes, please do.
So I think all of us in the world that do things that are impactful, it didn't come out of a perfect life, right? It didn't come out of everything's been easy. There's things that refine us and give us where we are, right? And those things typically aren't the most pleasant. They're hard, they're challenging. But it's so important because without those things, we wouldn't be who we are. We wouldn't be doing the work that we're called to do, right?
Yep.
So when we talk about gratitude, it's really important to talk about that. You gotta be grateful for all of it, right?
For sure. Yeah.
A million years ago, I was born in Maui. My parents divorced. My mom and I moved back to Minnesota. My dad moved to California. So I grew up in Minnesota with my mama and my grandparents. So my grandparents lived in this tiny town in southern Minnesota, 2,000 people. Bumpy was a horse trainer. I got to grow up in a barn. Gigi was like way ahead of her time as an entrepreneur. And then the gardening and the baking. So it was just all summers, all breaks I spent there was magical. Dad was very in and out here and there. Never really part of my life, for the most part. I was going off to college. He said, hey, listen, I never helped you, never helped your mom. I'm going to take care of your room and board freshman year. And I was like, that's amazing. So grateful. Thank you. So 18 years old, get up to college, University of Minnesota, Duluth, 1,000 below zero, right? In the dorm doing the thing. A couple months in, I get a call and they say, yo, listen, your bill was never paid and you were fully maxed on student loans. And I'm like, shit. Okay. So what do I do? Did I quit school? My mom had just moved to another country.
Man.
Or I think, and again, not that I could articulate it at 18, but it was probably when I look back, probably one of the first time where I went, okay, without being able to put words to it, tapping into the resourcefulness. Because when we come up against stuff that's challenging and that we're like, how the hell am I going to figure this out?
Yep.
Oftentimes we think it's because we don't have the resources. We don't have the money, the support, the time, the energy, whatever. But really, it's about tapping into that part that we all have. That's the resourcefulness, right? It's that this is not the end. Let's figure it out. So I had to move out of the dorm. I got 3 jobs. I rented a 5-bedroom house and filled the other 4 bedrooms. People who are stupid enough to rent houses to 18-year-olds beyond me, but I guess that's what you get in a college town.
Yep.
And I figured it out. Now, it wasn't the fun college experience that my daughter is having, which I'm so grateful for her. But you know what? You do what you got to do. And then I was young and I moved back to the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I got married at 3. I think I was 23. And you don't know who you are. Maddie is 22 and a half. She's a baby.
Yeah.
You don't get married. But Midwest definitely did things earlier. But I was certain no one was going to love me. And I was going to be this old cat lady, right?
Spinster.
Spinster, for sure. Because, yeah, 23. And it was a lonely marriage, right? But we were very young. And there was a lot of stuff in there. And there was a lot of questioning, like, what's wrong with me? How do I fix it? But we had our miracle baby. We had Maddie. And when she was 6, it was like, all right, it's time. This is not working. And we were very calm about it. We were very we went to mediation. We were like, we don't need attorneys. It was a Friday. He had said, can we take her to Disney World together for the first time? I'm like, no problem. Of course we can. And all I ask is this, give her a year. So if you meet somebody or you're with somebody, whatever, do your thing. But when you're with her, give her this year. She's 6 to just be with you when she's with you. Be with mama when she, okay, no problem. Literally. So that was a weekend with her dad. So I called the next day and she said, oh, daddy's friend's here and her daughter, and we're colored Easter eggs. So I lost my shit. And then what was going to be this kind of calm thing turned very crazy and volatile and insane and horrible for the next couple of years, right? And in that crisis or in that time, I did all the things that we're told to do. I talked about it in therapy. I drank wine and talked about it with my girlfriends. I read the books. I listened to Brene Brown. I did all the things. And while all of that is beneficial, it does keep you in the story and the drama, and it just perpetuates, right? I didn't know that at the time. Fast forward 3 years from the divorce, Maddie's 9. We're living in this little town in Minnesota called Afton, which is on the St. Croix River that separates Minnesota from Wisconsin. We have this little 100-year-old farm cottage and horses and chickens and this pond that in the summer I would dye blue every weekend, and she could be on her little floaty in our little pond full of tadpoles. It was pretty magical, but it was freaking cold, right? So before we started recording, we were talking about I'm a freeze baby. And that winter in particular, there was so many days that was 40 below zero. And mid-February, the freaking metal of the pump just snapped off because it was so cold.
Right.
So for the whole winter, I had to run a hose in the window, hook it up to a washing machine, water the horses, snake it out. It was hell. Yeah. So my father, who'd been a little bit more involved here and there, let me tell you, he paints pictures of the most fabulous things. And he has a beautiful eye for design. He's also a full-blown narcissist and a liar. So we'll throw that out there.
Okay.
But he came to visit and said, it was May. He's like, hey, listen, get out of this cold. It's the perfect time for you guys. Move to California, take over this family business that I've been building. Maddie can grow up in this little town at the base of Mount Tam. You guys will be at the ocean. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. However, number one, I'm not moving on one of your whims of one of your next bigger deals that never happens.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm only going to disrupt her life one time, right? I moved around a lot when I was little, and I'm not going to do that to her.
Yeah.
Number three, my mom had just had a surgery. She did nails for a living, and they nicked her nerve. She couldn't use her right arm, so she was, that was a problem. And I'm like, and I'm not leaving the horses. He's like, no problem. Bring your mom, bring the horses, we'll build a barn. And I was like, oh, that sounds fabulous. So everything in me was screaming, no. My chosen family, my best friends were like, are you insane? You can't trust him. This is crazy. And so I was like, I'm doing it anyway. So I packed up my mom and my daughter and horses and cats, and we moved across country, and I didn't know a single person here. So at the beginning, it felt magical and amazing and kind of a fairy tale. I had this relationship with my dad. My parents were friends, hanging out. We had family dinners, weekends with the horses. And I had a little bit of that pit in my stomach, but I thought, because that's a big deal. So we're there a few months. I'll never forget it. It was December 1st because her birthday is November 30. And I'm in the studio. And my father had left to drive girlfriend number 150, whatever, back to South Dakota or wherever her and her obnoxious kids were grown. And this guy came to the studio, and he'd worked there way before I was involved in marketing and stuff. And he ordered these flyers. Anyway, he was picking them up, taking them to the post office for me because there was something wrong with the postmark. And I heard this noise, and I kind of look out in the front of the studio, and I hear the door open, and then I see all these people, and I don't remember, 7 or 10, somewhere in between there. And there's all these men, and they have guns drawn, pointed at me.
Holy shit.
put me in handcuffs and
What?
sit me down on a chair. And I'm like freaking out because Maddie's supposed to be home from school with my mom in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And a new friend for the first time, right? And there's cars everywhere. There's people everywhere. And I'm like, I need to call her. And they're like, you're not calling anybody. Well, when they get here, you'll be fine. Anyway, very long story. But I ended up in the middle of this huge DEA investigation and they're doing all this stuff in there. And so while they said, we've been following you and we were pretty sure that this isn't anything that you're part of or aware of, you can still lose Maddie. Just a lot of fear.
Holy
stuff, which
shit.
the worst thing you could ever say to a mama.
Yeah.
So this went on for 2 years. But in that moment or the immediate aftermath was, I now have no money. The assets they took, like everything was frozen.
Mm-hmm.
All that capital that was there to build the business and pay our expenses in our life. This relationship with my father, like pretty
Gone,
much
blown up. Mm-hmm.
So now I have to make a decision, right? What do? Do I take us back to Minnesota, which I totally could have, probably couldn't afford to bring the horses back, but taking us back into our friends and family, or do I keep my promise to Maddie and break generations of broken promises, right? And so at the end of the day, that was the most important thing to me. So we stayed, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt later.
Holy shit.
And a sense of, for 2 or 3 years, every time I heard something in the middle of the night, I was certain someone was coming to get me, whether it was the DEA people or some people that had to do with the whatever. And in those 2 years, people would show up at my door. It just was scary. So anyway, and in that time, of course, doing the therapy and trying to deal with that and writing letters to him that I never sent because you can't feed a narcissist. So just trying to process the anger and the sadness. Who does that? Who does that? One thing about me, but your freaking granddaughter, it just completely delusional. And again, I couldn't really ever be out of one of those two emotions. So I wasn't very present. I was super pissed off, or I was devastating and heartbroken and trying to figure out how to support us and Maddie and whatever. So I got my real estate license and I was doing all these things. And then I decided that would be a great time to start dating for the first time. Brilliant idea. So I went on the dating apps for the first time ever. And I was like, okay, it was a Monday night. I remember sitting there. I go on the thing. I don't know if you've ever had to do that, but there's like a million people are sending you stuff. And it's ridiculous. So I went on a couple dates. Then I went on a date with somebody that was interesting. And then on a second date, and I knew in the second date, everything about him made everything in me super uncomfortable. But and he was very good at like immediately flipping this around and making, like, it made me, I don't know how to even explain it, but I was now have all this evidence that clearly I'm inherently broken and something's very wrong with me, right? My husband didn't love me, whatever. My father, maybe I'm too picky. Maybe my expectations are too high. Maybe I should just really see what this. So anyway, I got into a very abusive relationship, and it took me a long time to untangle that and get out of it. And when I did, I was like, this is never again. Never again. I would rather just be Maddie's mama, and I have great friends, do my thing. I will never be in a position again where I'm like afraid, I'm shrinking, because every day I was too much in one way and not enough in another way. And it was horrible. And it was about that time, again, therapy, talking about it, trying to figure it out and analyze it to death, that I found something that then for me became the basis of what became my life's work. Because in a few weeks, there's literally parts of me that I barely recognized in a good way. And I was no longer just in this place of sadness or anger or this constant state of something's very wrong with me. And it was then that I went, wow, there's a better way. And again, therapy is amazing. But when you keep telling the story over and over, whatever the trauma is, a divorce, a childhood stuff, a failed business, guns to your head. Like when you keep telling that story, because memory is cellular, your body relives it over again. And so that was my moment. An hour of backstory to get to the moment. But that was really the moment where I went, oh my God. And I created this work for me first. And on the other side of that, 2.5 years, I've been married to the greatest love of my life, which I never thought would happen ever. Clearly. And I get to do the work that I was called to do in this world and change not only the lives of the women that I work with, but their families, their friends, their communities. So it's just an honor.
The ripple effect of all of that and your story, oh my God, is fucking unbelievable and incredible. But you took that pain and turned it into purpose and are now giving back and helping others, which is absolutely incredible. I love it. Most people spend a lifetime avoiding their pain.
Yeah.
What made you decide to walk straight into yours?
Okay, so I love that question because here's the thing. Like even when people they'll hear me speak, they'll go, "Oh, that's interesting," but then that initial reaction of, "Fuck, I don't want to tell my story again. I'm so sick of my story." And that's what makes this work so incredible. We're not going back into the story. We're not going back to the thing that happened when you were 7 and you came home and had a spelling test and you got a B on it and somebody said, "Oh, you can do better." And you went, "Oh, I have to be perfect to get love." I'm making stuff up, but we're not unpacking the dad stuff and we're not talking about your ex-husband. It's not relevant. So we have an opportunity to clear all of that, release all that built up negative weight, that energy that's stored in our cellular, in our body, without going back into anything that caused the trauma and pain in the first place. And again, you got to do some work first. If you haven't done any therapy and you haven't done any processing, I'm not your girl yet. Go do that and then come to me. Because first you got to deal with it. But then this is the catalyst to when you're in your story, right? You're in it still and it's dramatic and you talk about it and you cry or you have a pit in your stomach or you get choked up. Your heart's racing. You are feeling it again. It's still defining you 100%. The difference is that when instead of standing in your story, when you can stand on your story.
Oh, that's good.
It goes from defining you to refining you, right? And so I can tell you all these things. There's no tears here. I can share. It's a part of who I am. It happened. I'm not saying it was okay but it's a part of who made me who I am.
Yes.
But it doesn't impact or have control over my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, my decisions, my life. And that's the beauty of what I call alchemical forgiveness.
I love that. Going from standing in your story to standing on your story. That is so powerful. And the visual of that you can see yourself standing in something that you struggled with, standing in the struggle, to then moving out of it and actually standing on it. I can visualize it. That is such a beautiful and powerful visual to use and to hold as an anchor. That is amazing. I love that.
Good.
Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Why is this mission of yours to help and teach women to embody and reclaim their deepest desires so personally important to you?
So I think especially with heart-led, high-capacity, high-achieving women, there's a lot of this is about identity, right? So there's parts of us that we attach ourselves to certain things that we identify. So when you're in a story, like the divorce or whatever, like that is so that is so connected to your identity. Maybe your identity is really attached to your career or being a mama or having been a wife and now you're not, whatever it is. An identity oftentimes that you are trying to live from today is an identity that you outgrew, right? It's not yours anymore. And in order for you to step into that identity that actually aligns with who you are today and between now and dead, who you want to be, we have to actually
now and dead.
Look at that. It's so important to me because one of the things that I ask everyone at the beginning of, what do you want? Who are you and what do you want? What will you be doing or not doing differently than you're doing or not doing right now on the other side of this, whatever this is? And so often that brings tears. And the answer of, I don't really know. I've spent my whole life taking care of everybody else or putting everybody else's needs or a career or a husband or whatever. I don't really know what I want. So being able to give somebody the gift of clarity at a level they've never had changes everything. It's like the difference of if we went out to dinner together and we sat down and the server comes over and says, "What can I bring you?" And we're like, "We're parched. We need something to drink. We'd like to start with a salad." a fabulous protein and whatever your beautiful vegetables are of the day. Great.
Mhm.
So they bring us an iced tea and a Caesar salad and a lovely pork chop and some roasted carrots. And we got exactly what we ordered.
Mhm.
100%. The issue is we really wanted a glass of Pinot, a salad with some goat cheese and figs and beets, and a lovely ribeye and some roasted asparagus. And that's the difference of why most people, especially I feel like high achieving women, almost get what they want in life, but they don't. And then they wonder what's wrong with them. Oh, I start things, I don't finish them. Why does everybody else get to have the person or the wealth or the job or the health, the friendships or whatever it is? And it all starts with that level of clarity of understanding your values and your non-negotiables and your desires, the level that you never have. So now you have this thing that you don't have to do the thing that I did when I got into that abusive relationship of going, I don't know, is that a red flag? Am I crazy? Maybe it's okay. Maybe it'll be better with time. In a matter of minutes, you know if somebody either gets to have an opportunity to be in your life, whether that's romantically, personally, professionally, whatever, even friendships. Because if there's anything that doesn't line up with those values, like without those it cannot be, or there's anything on that non-negotiable list that's present or not present, depending on the context, it's a clean no. You don't spend weeks and months and days ruminating and trying to figure it out and guessing yourself, because after you've been through stuff, we lose that trust in ourselves because we're like, I don't know, I thought I freaking knew. Look how that turned out. So it's that clearing those cycles to create the confidence and clearing those patterns to create the partnerships. Because if we don't, we end up in more of the same, which is exactly what we don't want.
That is beautiful and powerful. I know that's exactly what your work is all about, is clearing to create. And that's just that very first question of, what do you want? So many people have and that goes for men and women.
Totally.
I have no idea. I've never thought about it. I've never given it any thought, is we're so caught up in all the other shit going on in our lives that we don't take the time. People don't want to sit with themselves and think about these things and do the work to figure it out. And I was just talking with a friend of mine about that word work. And I said to her, we have to figure out a different word when it comes to that word work when we're talking about ourselves, because work it has a negative connotation to it, because you think about, oh, I have to go to my 9 to 5. I have to go to work. We have to figure out a different word to use for that, because that's where I think that's part of where people get hung up is, I don't want to do any work. What do you mean I got to work on myself?
Exactly.
What the fuck is that?
I love that you made that distinction, because words are so important. And oftentimes I'm doing some writing, or I'm writing a Substack or content, and that word will pop up. And I'm like, okay, even if it's subconscious, when you see that word, you immediately go to, oh, I have to go do deep work. And I have to unpack shit. And I have to relive it. And I don't want to. So then people stay stuck.
Yep.
Again, that's why, like, this work in particular it's painless and peaceful. This is not work that is heavy, but it is the work that will actually be the catalyst to help you create the life and love that you actually want, rather than just staying in this over and over, ending up in the same position.
Yeah.
Because we're not going back into the story and all the old stuff. It's not relevant.
I am going to figure out another word.
Okay, good.
I am going to spend the time. I will definitely share it with you, because it needs to happen. 2 conversations in a row this has come up.
Yeah.
So the universe is telling me. So I will.
That's your job.
Yes, for sure.
You're in charge.
Thank you. I accept that responsibility. You help women through your work reclaim their deeper desires. What does reclamation truly look like when it's not just a mindset, but a full body truth?
I love that. So everybody thinks they've done their mindset work, and most people have. And so I get a lot of pushback when I share this with people, because the thing is, if we think about the difference between the conscious and the unconscious, if you think about it in terms of your body, everything from the neck up is our conscious mind, right? We use it all day. It's everything we know. It's our goal setter. It's 10%, which means everything from the neck down, the rest of our body is the unconscious mind, 90%. So if our conscious is the goal setter, the unconscious is the goal getter. It's the operating system. It's the general. And as we've talked about several times in this conversation, It's the literal library of everything we've ever experienced. And that's where it's all held in that cellular level, right? And we think about memory being in the brain, and of course, it lives in the circuitry. But we know, science, memory is cellular. And so when you look at the fact that every day we think somewhere between 65,000 and 85,000 thoughts, 90% of those thoughts are recycled. They're the same things we said to ourselves or thought about yesterday and the day before, in the middle of the night, and last month, and probably last year, and who knows, a decade ago. And 75% of those thoughts are negative. And that's where I get the pushback, because people are like, oh no, I've done my mindset. I'm so freaking clear. I don't ever want to be in a situation again where I feel like I can't trust that person. I don't ever want to be in a relationship where I am not cherished. I don't ever want to be in this freaking debt anymore. I don't ever want to be in this job that I hate. I don't. And that feels like a declaration of, I won't do this again. But the problem is the unconscious mind doesn't hear the clarifying don't. All it knows is what you're focused on. So it hears debt, job that I hate, asshole person who makes me feel unsafe, who doesn't appreciate me and honor me and love me. And it goes, okay. Because here's the truth. The unconscious mind will never make you a liar. So all of those things, those conversations, those internal dialogue, the things that we say and what we're thinking about becomes your life.
Our thoughts become things.
Right? Anything that happens from an external thing, whether it's a conversation or a sunset or whatever, right? That thing enters us through all of our senses. And then our brain deletes and distributes and distorts because there's too much information coming in at all times. So it comes down to a little bit or more amount that we can actually process. And then that goes through our internal rep system, which is our filters, our past experiences, what we've had happen in relationships, what happens when you never find a parking spot and every boss hates you and all the things. And that mixes with your physiology, and that creates your state, your thoughts, your state become your behavior. So breaking it down to that, as simple and complex as that is, it really does start with, what are you thinking about? What are you focusing on? In 72 hours, we can rewire that neurology and completely change your physical world.
In 72 hours.
72 hours.
Holy shit.
It is one of the most incredible experiences. So I call it my Magnet for Miracles exercise, because my values as a person and for my business are love, generosity, belief in what's possible, impact, and being a magnet for miracles. And that's my favorite thing to teach.
I love that. That is amazing. Absolutely love it. It is so powerful. What role then does embodiment play in rewiring and integrating change? And how do we move from knowing the W word work to becoming the W word?
Yeah. Yes. So important. So much work in this space focuses really heavy on clarity and awareness, which is super important. It's the foundation for any kind of growth, change, transformation, whatever we're calling it. But the problem is, if you have that and we're going to blow out this old neurology and strategy and behavior and ways of processing and thinking, and then if we're not going to replace it with anything and give you the skills to go with the knowledge, then you're like, great. Now I have these ahas. What the hell do I do with it? This is why people are like, I've been in therapy for years and I've done all this freaking work. And then one thing happens and it's like, bam, I go right back to who I was 10 years ago. It's because, yes, you have the clarity and the awareness, but you didn't replace the neurology and the behavior and the strategy. So when we're looking at this process, when we're clearing, and again, that starts with clarity, and then we do a dysfunction detox and we get rid of all of that shit that doesn't serve you and all the old identities and the stuff that keeps you stuck, that makes you certain that you're broken and all the unworthy and unlovable and all the things. And then we get to figure out, who are you now outside of the noise and the conditioning and the society and the past and the blah, 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 blah. Then we get to step into that create phase. And here's where we start to activate that. And then here's where we replace that neurology and the behavior and the strategy. And when I say strategy, oftentimes that triggers like a strategic planning for career. I want you to remember, I want you to take that down for a second and say strategy. We have a strategy for everything. It's how our brain knows what to do next. So we have a strategy for grocery shopping. We have a strategy
Yeah.
for sex. We have a strategy for taking a bath, reading a book, illness, wellness, taking a walk. It's like, okay, here's what we do, and then here's what we do again, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of strategy is great. Most of it's super dysfunctional. So when we blow all of the dysfunctional stuff out, we got to replace it, right? And then we're at this place where we've gotten clarity that you've never had. We've gotten rid of all the yucky stuff. We've figured out who you are. We've replaced that neurology behavior strategy. And now we're like, great, now we figured out what you want, whatever that is. We are going to reverse engineer those goals and install them on your timeline. And the reason that this is important is, let's say one of those things that you really want is by the end of this year, you're going to book a trip to Italy, right? So the question is, or the goal is, all right, by December 31st, 2026 or sooner, I'm celebrating fully booked this trip to Italy. So my question would be, okay, great. What has to happen in the second before you could call me and say, oh, my trip is booked? That might be, I looked at my phone and I saw an email come in from the travel advisor with the villa booking and the flight confirmation and the blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. And then in that moment, I want you to close your eyes. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? Are people talking? Are you like jumping up and down? Are you hear you're out on a bus stop? I want you to experience it in your senses. And then we're going to install that moment on your timeline, because the brain doesn't know the difference between something that's actually happened and something that we visualize with emotion. And it only takes 17 seconds holding a thought like that to either create new neural pathways or reinforce the current ones, right? So once that happens, it ignites the reticular activating system in your brain to now be laser focused for looking for the things and the people and the opportunities and the experiences that you wouldn't normally see, right? Some huge thing that would be like, hey, come to Italy with us and we're going to buy your plane tickets. You would never have noticed that before, right? So now you will. But then the other important thing is, okay, that's great and nice, but how do we actually do this so that we get to have the life that we want instead of just wishing for it? So when we start at that moment, we microstep backwards to today or whatever the date is, right? And by doing that, we say, okay, great. What has to happen just before that? Okay. What has to happen just before that? All the way back. And at the beginning or at the top where the goal is actually being achieved, it's very micro, right? Like, all right, the minute before that, the hour before that. And then as you get back closer to date, it becomes more macro. But when we talk about goal setting and achieving things, we're like, okay, great. Between now and the end of the year, I'm going to book this trip. What do I need to do? I got to do this. I got to figure it out. Okay, awesome. You missed like 80% of the most important steps because the unconscious mind can't fill in the blank going forward. But when we micro step backwards, now we have everything. So when we're spinning out or you're super stressed about something and you're like, I don't even freaking know what my name is, let alone the thing I need to do next to get the thing that I say that I want, you have it all. And now to finally answer your question about embodiment, then we get to move to the claim phase where we own it, we integrate it, and we embody it. So this is where you no longer question yourself about, is this the right decision? Is this the right person? Is that a red flag? Should I do this? You don't need that external validation anymore, because this is where you fully fall in love with yourself again. And now you get to hold boundaries. You get to communicate your needs clearly and expertly. You get to deepen the richness in every single one of your relationships. And then we integrate that. And we integrate that into your decisions, your energy, your choices, your relationships. And then you embody this. And now you get to love and lead and live from this low frequency, right? This is now who you are. So we start in this place where we had no freaking idea, go through this beautiful process, and then you actually get to live from that new frequency. And I think it's really important to talk about frequency for a second, because we don't get what we want, we get who we are. And I like to use music as an example. So if we're thinking about music, so for you, what is your favorite or one of your favorite genres of music?
Rock and roll.
Amazing. And what would be a genre of music you really don't care for?
Country's not my favorite, but I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite.
Fine. We're not, can't be best friends.
Yes, we are. We're still besties.
We're still besties. Okay, so for you, great. Now, if you're listening, I want you to It's important that I want you to pick your favorite music and your least favorite music. Okay.
Okay.
For you, I want you to imagine that everything you want for your life, every hope, dream, wish, magic wand, fairy dust, no filtering, like it all is hanging out on Sirius Radio 111, all rock, all day, every single one of your favorite songs ever. And consciously, we often feel like we are hanging out in these high vibration emotions, right? Gratitude, joy, appreciation, things, which is true. But unconsciously, we're often hanging out in these low frequency emotions, fear, shame, guilt, regret, anger, rage, whatever it is. And the issue there is that you're stuck on freaking Kenny Chesney radio, right? And it's all day, every day, and you can't turn it off and you can't turn it down. Maybe throw in a little Morgan Wallen to make it extra annoying for you. And then the question is, can you hear rock on the country station?
Nope.
Not a chance. So how can you hear the rock? You have to raise your frequency, because radio station, satellite, it's a frequency. So for us, when life doesn't look the way that it could or should, we got to change the frequency. And that's what this work does.
That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that exercise. That is a great reminder or a great practice for people to step into. I love that. There's so much there, like so much. When you were talking about the process, I was thinking about a blank canvas and painting.
Yeah.
That's what came to mind as you were talking about it. That's what I envisioned, but it can be whatever. It can be the radio stations. It can be all of those things. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Riana.
Of course.
How can a woman trust her desires when her entire body has been wired to fear her own power?
So most people can't. And here's the thing. If you could have figured this out intellectually, or learned something else, or read another book, or taken another course, you would have done that already. You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. It's why we have to tap in to that other piece of you, right? That 90% that runs the show, that is the operating system, because I promise you, your nervous system, your ego, whatever you call it, is so afraid to even consider something else because it survived for so long in this place, right? So if we think about our life, right? And because most of who we are, like 90-ish%, we picked up between 0 and 7. So in your childhood, in your adolescence, if you grew up in an environment that was chaotic, for instance, or where there was not affection, or you had to earn love, or there was yelling, your unconscious mind knows how to live in that. Therefore, it says, okay, I know how to survive in this. This is what we will continue to seek. And again, when we go back to identity, so much of this is, yes, you're still operating from something that you've outgrown. But until you can step into that new identity, you aren't going to feel safe, because the unconscious mind has 2 jobs: keep you safe, get resolution. And so when all of us have this little border for where we're comfortable. And when we get close to the edge of that, that's where that voice in your head starts to get loud. Oh, no, we're good. We don't need to go try this thing or hire this person or go to this. We're good because we know how to survive in this. And that's scary AF over there, because we don't know what that's like to be happy or healthy or free of this, whatever. And it's important to understand the voice in your head is not you. You are the one listening to the voice in your head, which is a huge distinction, because there's a difference between the voice in your head and intuition, and people often mush that together.
Yeah.
The other thing about the unconscious mind is it wants resolution. So any of your needs that were not met will either get met consciously or unconsciously. And how does the unconscious mind get those needs met? Through human relationships and playing out the same scenario over and over again. So if you felt unsafe, or you didn't feel cared for or loved, or whatever it is, until you get resolution for that, it's going to continue to show up. So I want you to know that it's not your fault. It's nothing that you did or didn't do. You just can't outthink this or read it or learn another thing. It's not about that. It's about actually rewiring all that stuff on the inside so that you get to be the version of you that actually is who you are today.
Yeah, all that stuff out there, the unknown is scary as fuck. And to your point, your unconscious mind just wants to keep you safe, and that's uncomfortable out there. So we're going to keep you over here where you know it's comfortable, and we know that you're going to be safe. And that's
Even
it.
though it's fucking horrible. But we know how
Yes.
to
Yeah.
live
Even
it,
though,
so therefore it's comfortable.
yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. Absolutely. What have you learned about power, real, grounded, unapologetic power through the lens of the body?
Oh, I think when we go back to that moment of my catalyst moment, and I talked about there was something that, and it was like, wow, that's crazy, which became like my whole beginning. It's something called quantum time release, and it's a multi-dimensional technique. When I talk about the dysfunction detox, this is like a big piece of that. And it is an unconscious process. And by that, I mean, you're not unconscious. You'll be chill and comfy and cozy and zen, but we're tapping into the unconscious mind. So we're going to get resolution and clear root causes of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, and all those limiting beliefs that have formed in all over our life without going back into any conscious memory of the thing that caused it. Because the beautiful thing is you don't have conscious memory of root cause. So the reason that's so critical is that if we think about all of those emotions that I just shared, right? Anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame. Each one of them, imagine they have their own ribbon or twine or whatever comes to your brain. And in our lifetime, every time after that root cause, which who knows, that could be when you're 0, it could be before, we don't know. But every time we have an experience that's significant with that emotion, it's like a marble goes on that ribbon. It has their own. So today something happens that makes you sad. It's not so much about the today sadness. It's the 30, 40, 50, 60 years of marbles behind it. That's the charge. That's the gestalt. So when we get to release that, and the body gets to release that in a painless, peaceful way, we now have room, like physically have room energetically for what's meant for us. It's like I just turned 50, like just shy of a month ago, and have a little
birthday.
Thank you. Have a little ADD, have a little perimenopause. I love organizing. I love organizing stuff, and also shit piles up around me. I just want to close the door and I don't want to deal with it. I hate it and it makes me just crazy. But that also it's there. So a little while back, it was my pantry was an insane mess, right? Stuff thrown in there, whatever. I took everything out. It was all over the kitchen. My husband was laughing at me. He's like, "You are so in your happy place." I was like, cleaned out the pantry. And then I went through every single item and I threw out all this expired pasta and half open crackers and just all the junk that's been sitting in there for God knows how long. And I threw it all away. And then what was left, I put back, and it all had this spot. And now there's all this room that we actually want. It's the same up here. If we don't clean out these old expired ways of thinking and processing and stories that we believe are true and identities and things that we have believed for so long that are lies about ourselves, there's no room for what's meant for us. So the actual physical release of that changes your DNA. It changes your internal system. It changes what you have space for energetically. And I see things happen all the time, like creativity starts to flow, ideas pop in, people are able to release physical weight that they haven't been able to because, well, especially as women, because our bodies, our nervous systems are different than men. And so if our internal doesn't feel safe, we can't release weight. And a lot of times that isn't even a conscious feeling of not feeling safe. It's like, you don't know that's what's happening. And so when you get to experience that, the kind of the integration time after that is magical. And people are like, I feel different, feel lighter. Sometimes people are tired. Sometimes you'll have crazy energy. Sometimes it fluctuates. But regardless, you're a different human being after that experience. You're available for. And again, I think that's so much of it when we talk about identity. What are you actually no longer available for as we move?
It is so satisfying and gratifying to clear, to use your example of the pantry, cleaning out a space and getting rid of shit that you no longer need or in your mind that no longer serves you, and making space for all more good to come in and more things you desire and all of it. It is so incredibly important. And we need to look at it. That's a great analogy. That's a great way to look at it. Clearing out a pantry, clearing out a closet, whatever it is, getting rid of clothes that no longer
Exactly.
fit you or that you don't want anymore, whatever it is, whatever analogy you want to use, it feels so satisfying to be able to throw that shit away or give it, if it's clothes, give it away to people who could use it, whatever it is. It's such an incredible feeling within. And so you're making yourself feel good by doing that, but you're also creating space for more good to come in, which is the most important thing. Love it. What would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions people have about healing, and what truth do you wish more women understood about their nervous system?
That it's got to be hard and it has to take forever and you have to talk about it all the time.
Those three things.
Because when we think about healing, we have been taught historical therapeutic modules or modalities say in order to heal, you have to process, you have to go back, you have to unpack, you have to understand, you have to make peace with. That's bullshit. You don't have to do any of that. Now, I want you to a certain extent, but I need you to understand that healing doesn't have to take months or years, take weeks or days. Because when we're not reinstalling the traumatic neurology, which you do when you keep going back to something that was painful, that's your guarantee in life that you're not going to get what you want. That's your guarantee between now and dead, that you are going to spend the rest of your life wondering why the fuck everybody else, and what's wrong with me, and why can't I, and la 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 la. Because when you're in your story all the time, that's your identity.
Yeah, you're reliving it. Your body doesn't know the difference, as you said.
You can't create from that.
No.
Because all you're saying is, this is where I'm at frequency-wise. I am pissed off. I am hurt. I am sad. I am angry. I want revenge. Okay, guess what? You can't get rock music when you're in
on the Kenny Chesney station.
You can't have joy and abundance and love and peace. And when you're stuck in fucking anger, rage, guilt, shame, fear, victim.
Yeah.
And when I say victim, I don't mean when you're victimized. I mean when you're in the archetype of everything happens to me and I have no control.
Yes.
Everything always bad happens to me and blah. But we can fix that so fast in 72 hours. I promise.
It does not have to take as long as we think. I love that. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
What does it mean to live from a regulated feminine nervous system in a world that is built on masculine chaos?
I don't know if you're going to like my answer.
I'll love your answer. I know I will.
Here's the thing. It's like there's this, there's a lot of talk about the masculine and the feminine. The masculine is achievement and doing, and then feminine is the being in the soft. Yeah, okay. And you can be both. You can be a badass woman who runs company and still be soft and want somebody to play with your hair. You can be super ambitious and still want someone to take care of you. It does not have to be one or the other. And I think it's a little bit dangerous to think that we aren't all always in a little bit of our masculine and feminine regardless, because yes, there's drive and achievement and winning, which I always think is funny when people are like, oh, that sounds so masculine. So what? Being feminine isn't losing? What is that? So it's like, I think of it as the best of both worlds, because we're all multifaceted, multi-hyphenate human beings. And you can run the world and still want your partner to decide what's happening for dinner and just, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And that's what makes us so incredible as human beings, is all the different parts and pieces. The parts where we're like, oh my gosh, I am so bold here. And the parts where it's like, no, I'm super tender here and I just want somebody else.
We all have both within us, masculine and feminine. And these are the conversations that we need to be having more about this kind of thing, because women have had to put on this bullshit facade of adopting the masculine energy in the board. We're speaking of corporate. It's bullshit. there is room for emotion and empathy in the boardroom and emotional intelligence and all of these things. And this is where these conversations are so important to have. And everybody, both men and women, need to come to the table and participate in these conversations, because everyone needs to be educated. We need to hear everyone's experiences. And this is how we're going to fucking change this, and it needs to change. I don't give a fuck. It's tiring. It's done. Let's fucking shift things. But this is how we do it, is talking about these things right here. They're so important to talk about.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that and bringing that up. It is a very important conversation that we need to have more of. In your experience, how are trauma and desire connected? And how can healing the nervous system unlock deeper pleasure, power, and purpose?
So if you've been on the planet longer than 15 minutes, you've had some trauma. So let's start there.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't have the stuff that you have. I didn't have any trauma. It doesn't have to be like Lifetime movie trauma. It's literally, we've all had trauma. When you were a little girl or a little boy and you were on the playground and somebody made fun of you and you felt alone because everybody else got invited to the picnic, that's trauma. And I don't know if you can tell, that happened to me. But like, all of those things then become part of who you are. And they become how we process and how we make decisions and what our strategy is to be liked and loved. And if we have to be perfect, we're going to be super driven and we're going to be the best athlete. Or if we're told that you ask too many questions and you talk too much, or we're going to get really small and quiet so we could be loved, or whatever it is. All of that is running the show. And again, 0 to 7, most of it we picked up. We let a 5-year-old make life decisions for us today? No.
No.
Do you understand that there's many of your decisions that were being run by a freaking 5-year-old? And trauma, when unresolved and not released, not by talking about it 47 times, but actually being able to clear it, inhibits you from the desires. So when I talk to people and we do this exercise, this thing called, it's what we talk about, we make the menu, right? I call it the knowing. And then you get this clarity codex after, which all of this and crazy, amazing things that becomes kind of your North Star. But when we are going through that, the values, okay, great. Most people say, I've never been asked this way. And this is really fascinating. Also, people sometimes get tripped on values thinking that it's related to religion, but it's the core of who you are. And then the non-negotiables piece, pretty easy. The desires piece is hard. People are like, I don't know. How do I know? I've never had that. I've never felt like that. So this is where we talk about, okay, great. I want you to literally put on some romantic comedy movie, read a Elin Hildebrand book, go out in the world and pay attention. And every time you see something that you're like, oh, I want somebody to do that for me, I want you to jot it down, because you don't have that experience yet, but you can recognize watching somebody walk down the street and their partner takes their hand or reaches over and gives them a forehead kiss, or come home from a long day and there's a bath drawn and a glass of wine and they're like, go, I've got dinner. Whatever those things are that you dream about or wish for, those are hard because it's all jumbled up with the trauma. And we've never experienced those things, so we don't know what they are. And we certainly don't believe they're going to happen for us. And then guess what? They absolutely won't, because we keep perpetuating that same instruction to our unconscious mind. It's just like getting in the car and getting our nav system. And I have no sense of direction, so I have to have it on all the time. And we put in an address and it says, great, we're going here. And it's the same with all of that stuff. We're going here. Okay. Here's the address to loneliness and debt and abusive relationships and never feeling safe enough to trust. And, okay, we'll keep going there because that's what you're telling me. So, I don't know. Can I answer the question?
Yeah. No, that's good. No, that's good. How do neuroscience and spirituality meet inside your work, where science explains the wiring and the soul leads the reprogramming?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. So I think the blending, again, like when I talk about the 72 hours in the neurology, it's not like a made up arbitrary number. We know neuroscience says if we can do this thing, we can rewire things in 72 hours. So it's this combination of understanding like the clarity pieces and these different things that make a difference, which is part of my framework, my IP, whatever we want to call it,
Yeah.
process. But then it's like, great, that sounds fabulous and that's fun and there's some theory and philosophy there, and wouldn't that be nice? But when we can add neuroscience into it, then what we get is lasting change, not something that something happens in life, comes at you, and you go back to where you were 10 years ago because we didn't change the neurology. And that, I think, is what's missing in so many things. It's like there's so many people in the world that do great work and they have great concepts and they teach great things, but it's never permanent. Because again, until you go in and do something differently, you're just picking the top off the weeds in the garden. They're all going to grow back. When
You have
what
to
you
get
really
down to
want
the root.
is freaking pull it out, right? And plant some flowers. And that's the difference of, again, just living life or trying to solve things from a conscious standpoint. And like we said before, you can't solve the problem with the same mind that created it. You can really temporarily.
Yeah.
But
It's not a permanent
doesn't
solution.
last. And then again, in my opinion, this is where we get people who beat themselves up because they're like, I was so sure this was the thing and I was going to do this program and then I didn't finish it and see what happens. And so whatever, I never finish anything I start anyway. Again, it's like, it becomes evidence that there's something wrong with you. You're not doing
And you're on that
anything,
loop.
and you're on that loop. And that's the way your whole entire life will be between now and then. I know I keep
love
saying
that
that
term. No, I love that term. It's that little line between the dates. That's life right there. You call yourself an identity architect. How do you define that term? What does that mean to you personally? And how does one begin to consciously design a new identity rather than live out the old one they inherited?
I think as we've talked through this conversation, that's how we do it, right? We get the clarity. We get rid of the stuff that's old, that's connected to old identity or connected to when we were married and now we're not. So we have this identity around this shame of we failed, right? Or we were in years prior, we had this big career and then we stepped back from that and started a family. But then there's this underlying, oh, now I'm just a mom or all of those things. So again, it's really just that process of the clarity and the clearing all of that nonsense out and getting to figure out who you are. So it's like this. Imagine you're standing at the front of a bridge, right? And so make your bridge the most beautiful bridge. For me, it would be like sparkly because I'm a glitter girl. So you make your bridge however you want. It can be cobblestone or wood or gold. I don't care. But you're standing and in front of you is this bridge. And right behind you is your current identity, who you've been living, the version of you right now. And that version is amazing. And he or she has survived a lot and created a lot and lived through it. And they've gotten you to where this point is right now. This point where you're going, I don't know. Like there's something more that's meant for me in my life. Like something feels disconnected and I don't know what it is or how to figure it out. And so I want you to imagine on the other side of that bridge is your next level identity, the version of you that's actually who you are, who you're becoming. And your job is to literally turn around and embrace that identity, hug him, hug her. And my vision is this, like, you know how when you're saying goodbye to somebody and sometimes you hold their hand and you look in their eye and you're like, love you, see you later. And then they start to walk away and then you have one hand and then it drops. I want you to experience that with this current identity. And then I want you to turn around and I want you to one step onto that bridge. On the other side of that is where that version of you, that identity becomes where you become one. But there's some steps we got to take to get across this bridge. But that lovely version of you who's gotten you here can't take you there. And when we're so attached to these old identities and these old stories and these things, and a lot of times it's because I've always been this. I was always so-and-so's wife. I was so-and-so's mom. I was a teacher or a photographer. And now I'm not. And now it just, nobody knows who I am. And I don't know what. Perfect. Great. We got to leave that version and figure out who you are now. How does that person show up? Where do they make decisions from? What do they feel when they wake up in the morning? How do they show up publicly and personally and privately? Is it different? Those are the starts of things that we start to ask that goes, if you woke up tomorrow and everything was on the rock station, how would you behave? How would you choose? How would you show up? How would you walk through life?
I'd be dancing and living joy and happy and all the things.
Right? It's just
Change the fucking station.
Change
or step across the bridge to embrace the newer version or the next level version of you. I love that analogy of the bridge, looking back at your previous self and lovingly sending them on their way, thanking them, giving them gratitude for getting you this far. Now it's time for me to embrace this next level version. I love that. Love that. Thank you for that visual. That is very powerful. And so, speaking of powerful, clear to create, that is a very powerful phrase. What does that truly mean to you on a cellular, energetic, and emotional level?
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see my logo.
I can.
My favorite logo from Etsy. So it says clear to create your very best life, right? So for me, my full life, my tagline has always been your very best life. I think I had the domain when I was 18. I never did anything with it. But because whether we've been best friends for 20 minutes or 20 years, I want you to live your version of your very best life. And it's different. 50 of us could be in a room. It's going to be slightly different of what we say, right? But the truth is you can't go from all this crap, childhood stuff and divorces and blah, 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 and friendships that you thought would last forever that all of a sudden are gone, that you can't believe is the truth. All those things. You can't just go from all of that to living your very best life. It doesn't work that way. We have to clear before we can create. We have to clear the story to create the life. And if you want a different story, stop telling the old one. I think we've beaten that horse in this conversation, but you have to clear, we talked a little bit about the confidence. You have to clear the cycles to create the confidence. Everything in the world is cyclical, including our lives. So sometimes when we look at 7 to 9 years, isn't that interesting? We have to clear those cycles to create the confidence and be able to trust ourselves. We don't need anyone else's freaking input to know what's right for us. And again, talking about clearing the patterns to create the partnerships. When we talked about the thoughts that we think, and most often it's about what we don't want, that's why we keep getting the same relationships. And that patterning we have to clear so we can have the partnerships that are aligned and genuine and true and feel good. And we have to clear the resentment to create the results, right? We're doers, we're mixers, we're high achieving people, but oftentimes there's resistance. And so when I would ask you, actually underneath that is, what are you resenting? And we have to clear that so you can have what you want. And we have to clear the loss to create the love. Even if it's self-love, even if it's a loss of, there was a marriage that you knew you didn't want to be in that wasn't good for you, but you still have to grieve what you thought it was going to be, right? I have us get married thinking, sweet, we're going to get divorced. We have this idea. And you have to clear that loss so that you can actually be and receive that love that's worthy of you, that's meant for you, that nourishes you, and doesn't have you shrink and pretend and make yourself into this thing so somebody will love you. So we have to clear before we can create.
Beautiful. How has doing this work changed the way you show up in life, leadership, and love?
It changes everything. It changes everything because rather than being ineffective or the victim of or the mercy of everyone and everything, you normalize being a magnet for miracles. You normalize that. So Maddie and I have this game we call it the parking spot game. And this was the very first way that I taught her how to be a magnet for miracles when she was younger. Because everywhere we go, there's always a parking spot. And her friends, it's freaking crazy. They'll call her, what's that parking spot thing that you do? And she'll laugh. Because people that complain about everything, there's never a freaking parking spot. Or when I go get my hair cut, they always do a shitty job or whatever. Everything is always wrong. And I promise you that person will never find a parking spot. So we are as clear as I know that when I wake up tomorrow morning, it's going to be Friday. Nobody could tell me differently. There's going to be a parking spot. So when we look at life like that, because again, we don't get what we want, we get who we are. So if we're coming from a place that, of course, there's going to be a parking spot. Of course, the love of my life is waiting for me. Of course, the work that I'm meant to do is going to line up for me, it's a very different life than nothing ever fucking works out for me.
Yeah.
I'm always picked last. No one wants me, whatever it is. So it changes everything. And I wrote something, I don't know, sometime this week I was talking about how when Pete and I got married and Maddie was giving me a toast at our wedding. And she said, I've never seen my mama so happy. And you guys bring out the best in each other. Because she saw the woman that cried herself to sleep, that made herself small, that lacked confidence in who she was. She saw that version. And then she sees this version. So it's the woman that Pete married was not the woman in those other relationships, right? And it's not about dating better or learning something or being on the right app or meeting the right person. You have to become that person so that other person can find you, get on the same fucking radio station, right? So it's so important because it is the thing that changes everything. And it's not one thing. It's not, oh, we're going to do this thing and you're going to have this relationship, but everything else, you got to go see someone else for that. This isn't about a thing or an area or a genre or a category. When we do this and get rid of all that stuff and really give you new neurology, it changes everything.
You get the parking spots, you get the money, you get the guy or girl, love, you get all of it.
Everything. It all just
comes to fruition. It comes together. I love it. If every woman listening could embody one energetic code right now, what would you imprint into her system?
Just because it's always been has absolutely no bearing on what it can be tomorrow. But you can literally change this in an instant.
72 hours.
72 hours. And there's this heaviness of, it's too late for me. Maybe when I was in my 30s, but in my 50s, forget it. Or I'm too old to change, or I've missed my time. None of that is true. I promise you, none of it is true. I see it every day. I have a client right now who's 71 years old. She's a freaking badass rock star.
Love it.
Found me after her third divorce and said, I keep marrying the same person. I don't feel like my life is over. I would love to experience what I've always wanted to experience, but I don't know. I keep doing the same thing. And now it's so fun.
I love that.
Where she is.
That's magical. That is magical.
But not in a way that she needs a man. She's like,
no.
But now I understand. I know who I am and what I want and what I wouldn't ever choose again because I'm not available for it. And I'm super happy. She's an artist. She's got great friends. She travels. She has a great family. She would love to have that in her life. But because she's not like, I need that to complete me, it's going to show up for her in a much easier way than this need and this desperation and this having to look a certain way and it's got to happen in this time frame. Because when we're so attached to the how and we have that tight grip on the reins,
it doesn't happen. Yeah. What does freedom mean to you at the very deepest level beyond money, status, or recognition?
Honestly, up either in the middle of the night because I have problems staying asleep or in the morning and just waking up and not having a pit in your stomach or having an immediate concern or worry or your breath takes away because you remember something that's either happening or you think it's going to happen. To me, that's the deepest level of freedom.
How do you define success?
Getting to wake up in the morning and not
have a pit in your stomach?
In your stomach. Success is, it's so dumb. It's whatever you decide it is. But it's kind of that full same thing of what does your very best life look like? For me, we're talking horses, beaches, wine, a Kindle, a floaty, people I love. For somebody else, it might be like climbing mountains. Success for me is getting to do the things that I want to do that I love the most in this world. Getting to do things that I know change people's hearts. Getting to jump on a plane and go to Maui for my 50th birthday. Getting to surprise the people that I love with something that I know they would love. That for me is success. Not having that sense of I want to do this for you and I can't. Or I'm depressed because I'm stuck in this life that I hate and I can't go do the thing that I want to do. So it's less about things and more about feelings and experiences. But for me, if I get to do that, golden.
Yeah. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
I think, again, just being in this place where, what anyone else thinks doesn't really matter. If I'm good with me, in my heart, in my gut, in my integrity, in my values, if I'm not hurting anyone else, it really doesn't matter if what they're gonna think. Who gives a shit? Who is they? Instagram people? If this lines up with who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and it's real, and it's not some mask that I'm putting on and pretending, then that's embodiment, who you really are, regardless of who you're talking to, the camera's on, if you're in public at a gala, if you're at home in your jammies, if that is who you are, and that's who you are all the time, that's embodiment.
I love it. Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section. So the next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3 word answer type thing, okay? What is your favorite way to celebrate?
Horses, wine, beaches, Maui.
One word that sums up your 2025.
Oh, 2025. Chaotic.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
Be a magnet for miracles.
What is one word that sums up your mindset?
Love.
One book that changed your life?
Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna.
One word that defines the woman you are becoming?
Grace.
That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I created a bonus question that I did not send you ahead of time. How do you define love? Both the kind you give and the kind you receive.
Love. It's how I define the opposite of suffering. So when we suffer, we only suffer when we fight with reality. So the choice. We suffer when we fight with, we want someone or something or circumstance to be different than they are. When we can fully love ourselves or someone else, it's accepting the person, the situation, the circumstance for what it is. Now, it doesn't mean you have to like it or stay in it or be a part of it, but you can't love someone if it's like, I love you so much, except I really need you to be more of this or less of this. Or I love myself, except I'm so ashamed of this thing that I beat myself up about it every single night. It's loving loving as is. That's love. Now, it doesn't mean you have to like it, but you can't love someone with asterisks. I love you, except for I need you to become this. Or I love you, except I need you to move to another country. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay. If you could step into my shoes, what is one question you would have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
What's a silly thing that nobody knows about you or very few people know about you?
Okay, go ahead.
Shark Week is my Super Bowl. Shark Week is my favorite week of summer. Sharks in the pool. I have shark wine glasses, soup for the red wine in slow motion. I have shark slippers.
All right.
I love
Shark Week. Okay. If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
My Gigi, my Grammy. I miss her so much.
Mm-hmm.
She was, my mama, of course. My mama is still here, but like Gigi and Bumpy were my unchanging anchors in life.
Beautiful. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Slow down. It's the constant wanting to be older or get through this thing to get to the next thing and always worrying if it was ever going to be the right thing or if you had to do this other thing to get there. You're missing out on the moments because you're never in the moment. I promise you, darling, it's all going to be okay.
Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your corner of the world, your tribe, your people, what would that last 30 seconds sound like?
Oh, that makes me want to cry. I'm thinking I'm going to cry. I don't know if I like this question. I love you so much. And I'm sorry for any of the times that I did something or said something or didn't do something or said something that hurt your feelings or made you feel for a moment that I didn't love you or appreciate you. And I'm beautifully human and so not perfect. And you are the best part of my life.
Beautiful way to end the interview. Riana, thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure having this opportunity to sit down and share in your story, your journey, and the beautiful light you put in the world through the work you do. Thank you for showing up and shining. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest has been Riana Malia. She is a board-certified neurosomatic practitioner and identity architect, also the creator of the Clear to Create method, which is a system that helps women clear the unconscious patterns holding them back, rewire their nervous systems, and reset their internal blueprints. Thank you so much, Riana. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca, follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast, and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.